The first box of roses was already warm when I touched it. It was sitting on the gravel outside my grandmother's greenhouse, 3 hours before my wedding. The cardboard had softened underneath from leaking water. Brown streaks ran down one side. When I lifted the lid, the smell wasn't fresh or green. It was sweet in the wrong way, like flowers left too long beside a sunny window. My mother stood behind me with her arms folded. "Maybe they just need water," Sandra said. "They're dead." "They're not dead, Emily. They're a little tired." I reached into the box and lifted one rose by its stem. 2 outer petals dropped onto my shoe. The rose was pale pink, almost peach. I had ordered deep cream roses from my grandmother's own beds. My sister, Destiny, crouched beside the second box. She pulled back the paper, made a face, and quickly covered it again. "Well," she said, "nobody's going to inspect them." I looked at her. "They're the wedding flowers. I know what they are. Then why wouldn't anyone look at them?" Destiny stood and brushed gravel from her knees. "I'm saying people are coming to see you and Christian. They're not coming to grade the centerpieces." My father walked over from the greenhouse office with his phone in his hand. He didn't ask what had arrived. He didn't look inside the boxes. He just said, "Laura's not picking up." That was the first detail I remembered later. Not the dead petals, not the brown leaves. It was the way Dad already knew we were supposed to call Laura. My name is Emily Stevens, and I'm 31 years old. If your family has ever asked you to swallow a humiliation just to keep everyone else comfortable, you'll understand why I stayed quiet that morning. Please like this video and subscribe. 3 hours after those boxes arrived, I married Christian Davidson under the old iron arbor in Stevens' greenhouse gardens. I carried a bouquet made from whatever could be saved. Most of it wasn't what I'd ordered. None of it came from my grandmother's beds. At the time, I believed a florist had made the worst mistake of her career. I didn't know someone in my family had walked into that florist's shop 3 days earlier and changed my order. I also didn't know why. To explain why dead flowers mattered that much, I have to go back. I own a small floral design studio in Hendersonville, North Carolina. It's in a converted tire shop behind a row of brick storefronts, and it still has a faded yellow line painted across the concrete floor. I kept the line because it runs directly beneath my main work table. When I'm trimming stems, it gives me a place to line up the buckets. The studio isn't fancy. There's a cooler in the back, 2 deep sinks, and a little office with a desk that came from a church rummage sale. I do weddings, memorial arrangements, restaurant flowers, and weekly deliveries for 3 dental offices. Spring is crowded. January is slow. Most months I pay myself without holding my breath. My family called it my flower hobby until it started covering my mortgage. Destiny's business was different, at least according to our parents. She owned Bright Occasions events. She had gold lettering on her office windows, matching cream binders, and a social media page full of champagne walls and balloon arches. At family dinners, Mom introduced her as our entrepreneur. Then she usually turned to me and said, "Emily works with flowers." That was how it had always been. Destiny was 3 years older and better at taking up space. She could enter a room late and somehow make the people waiting feel grateful she'd arrived. I learned early that if I wanted something finished, it was easier to finish it quietly. When we were growing up, Destiny changed her mind often. The whole house changed with her. If she wanted the front bedroom, I moved to the smaller one. If she forgot Mom's birthday, Dad said she was overwhelmed. If I forgot to return a casserole dish, Mom called twice and asked whether I was becoming inconsiderate. It wasn't that my parents never helped me. Dad taught me to change a tire. Mom sat with me in urgent care once when I sliced my palm on floral wire. They loved me in ways that were real enough to keep me questioning the rest. But when Destiny and I wanted different things, I already knew who would be asked to bend. My grandmother, Rosa, was the one person who didn't treat that pattern as normal. She owned the greenhouse on Chestnut Ridge Road. Stevens' greenhouse gardens had been there longer than I had. It was 6 acres of glass houses, planting beds, potting sheds, and gravel paths that never stayed where they were supposed to. Rosa bred roses. She could look at a plant from 15 feet away and tell whether the problem was mites, drainage, or somebody getting careless with fertilizer. I spent most summers with her. She taught me how to graft roses at the long cedar table in greenhouse number 2. "Clean cut," she'd say, guiding my thumb away from the blade. "Don't saw at it. The plant knows when you hesitate." Rosa didn't talk about feelings much. She sent you home with tomatoes. She sharpened your tools without mentioning it. If she thought you were working too hard, a sandwich appeared beside your elbow. Destiny visited the greenhouse when she needed a location for pictures. Rosa never criticized her for that. She just noticed. One August afternoon, Destiny brought a photographer and moved 6 display plants without asking. She wanted the brick wall behind them. Rosa waited until the pictures were done, then handed her a broom. Destiny laughed. "Seriously?" "You moved the dirt," Rosa said. "You can move it back." Dad heard about it and told Rosa she had embarrassed Destiny in front of a professional contact. Rosa was watering seedlings when he said it. She didn't even turn around. Barry? If a broom embarrasses her, she's going to have a difficult life. I was at the potting table trying not to smile. Rosa glanced at me and pushed the broom into my hands instead. "Don't enjoy it too much," she said. "You're helping." That was Rosa. She didn't make me the golden child to correct the balance. She expected both of us to carry our own weight. She died in 2024 at 84. The last time I saw her awake, she was in a hospital bed near a window. Her hands looked smaller than I remembered. I sat beside her and talked about ordinary things because she was tired of people speaking to her like every sentence belonged on a memorial card. I told her Keith had ordered the wrong irrigation fittings. "He knows better," she whispered. "I know. Send them back." "I already did." She closed her eyes and gave one small nod. After a minute, she said, "Don't let them turn the greenhouse into a party barn." "I won't. Weddings are fine. String lights are not agriculture." That made me laugh. Her eyes opened again. "You know what I mean," she said. "I do." The funeral was held 4 days later. Destiny planned the reception through her company and posted photographs before we'd left the cemetery. Mom said everyone processed grief differently. Dad paid bride occasions from his personal account and called it supporting family. I arranged Rosa's flowers myself. At the trust meeting 2 weeks later, I learned she had left the greenhouse to me. Dad's face didn't change when attorney Cheryl Barrett said it. Mom looked down at the table. Destiny leaned back and crossed her legs. Cheryl explained the condition in plain English. The property would remain in trust until I married. Dad and Mom would serve as interim co-trustees. They could handle the operating account and approve expenses for the farm. Once I married, ownership would pass to me. Rosa had included one sentence explaining the marriage condition. She wanted me to come into the greenhouse happy, not obligated. I didn't fully understand that sentence then. Christian and I had been together for almost 4 years, but we weren't engaged. Rosa liked him. She also knew I'd spent my whole life stepping in when my family needed someone dependable. I think she wanted one part of my future to arrive because I chose it, not because everybody handed me another job. Destiny didn't see it that way. "So Emily gets the entire property if she gets married?" she asked. Cheryl closed the trust document. Emily is the beneficiary. Marriage determines the transfer date. "That's what I just said." "No," Cheryl replied. "It isn't." Dad cleared his throat. "The important thing is that the greenhouse stays in the family." Mom reached across the table and touched Destiny's wrist. It was a quick motion, almost automatic. Destiny smiled at me. "Congratulations on your future farm, I guess." I said, "Thank you." That night, Dad called and asked me not to make the inheritance awkward. "I haven't said anything," I told him. "I know, but your sister's having a hard time. I didn't write the trust. Nobody said you did. Then what are you asking me to do?" He went quiet for a moment. I could hear television noise behind him. "Just be sensitive," he said. Destiny put a lot into building something for herself. She doesn't have property falling into her lap. I looked around my studio. It was almost 9 at night. I had 12 arrangements left to finish for a restaurant opening. My hands were stained green from eucalyptus. "Okay," I said. That answer kept peace. It also ended the conversation faster. Christian proposed the following spring at home. He had planned to take me to dinner, but a storm knocked out power across our neighborhood. He cooked pasta on the gas burner while I held a flashlight. Then he set a ring box beside the grated Parmesan cheese. I stared at it. He said, "This looked better in my head." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. Christian is a structural engineer. He likes plans, load calculations, and chairs that don't wobble. He's calm without being passive, which was new for me. When he disagrees with me, he says it. When he agrees, I don't have to wonder whether he's building up resentment. He waited until I stopped laughing. "Emily, will you marry me?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" The presentation was weak. The pasta's good. It came from a box. I know what I'm getting. We ate by candlelight after I put on the ring. I didn't call my family until the electricity returned. Mom screamed when I told her. Dad sounded happy. Destiny said, "Wow, so I guess the greenhouse is officially yours now." Christian was close enough to hear. "The wedding has to happen first," I said. "Right, of course. I'm just saying, nice timing. What does that mean?" "Nothing." "Don't get weird." Mom took the phone from her. "She's teasing. We're thrilled for you." After the call, Christian washed our plates. He didn't comment until he set them in the drying rack. "Does Destiny think I proposed because of the greenhouse? She thinks everything is about the greenhouse right now. Do you?" "No." He dried his hands and looked at me. "Good," he said. "Because I was going to propose before Rosa died. I waited because you were grieving. I knew that. Still, hearing him say it settled something. We chose a June wedding. I wanted it at the greenhouse because Rosa had built the iron arbor herself from old trellis pieces. The climbing rose around it was one she'd bred over several seasons. She'd named it Emily. It wasn't officially registered under that name. The label was handwritten and tied to the base with copper wire. The flowers opened cream and turned pale gold near the center. They weren't dramatic. They lasted. I planned to use cuttings from that rose in my bouquet and fresh stems from Rosa's beds for the tables. I could have done the flowers myself, but Christian refused. "You're not working the morning we get married," he said. "I work with flowers. It's not exactly road construction. You'll be at the studio at 4 in the morning. 5. That answer proves my point. So I hired Laura Stone, who owned Stone Vine Florals on Church Street. Laura and I sometimes competed for jobs, but we also sent work to each other. She knew Rosa's. More importantly, she knew the greenhouse. We met there in March and walked the beds with Keith Nunes, Rosa's longtime foreman. Keith had worked beside my grandmother for decades. He still wore the same canvas cap with a green brim, though the logo had faded into nothing. Laura photographed each plant she planned to cut. "I want the cream ones for the bouquet," I told her. "The deeper yellow can go on the dinner tables." She pointed toward the arbor. "And 6 open blooms from that climber? 8, if they're ready." Keith shook his head. 6. "You cut 8? That side will look bare." Laura smiled. 6 it is. We built the rest of the order around white lisianthus, green hellebore, and rosemary. Nothing died, nothing flown in at the last minute. Laura entered everything on her tablet while we stood beside the main greenhouse door. A text came through before I reached my car. It listed the date, delivery location, stem counts, and rose varieties. At the bottom, it said changes required written authorization. I saved it. Destiny offered to coordinate the wedding for free. She made the offer at Sunday lunch, with Mom and Dad sitting there. That made declining harder. "I've already made the schedule," I told her. Destiny put down her fork. "I schedule events for a living." "I know. So why are you doing it yourself?" "Because I like doing it." Mom glanced at me. "She's trying to give you a gift. I appreciate it. We're keeping it small." Destiny gave a short laugh. 120 people isn't small. It is for our family. Dad joined in. "Maybe let her help with vendors. You don't want to be answering calls all day. Christian's cousin is handling calls. Destiny's face went still. That should have warned me. Destiny didn't mind being refused in private. In front of our parents, refusal became disrespect. She picked up her water glass. Fine. I was trying to save you money. I'm not asking you to work for free. You'd rather hire strangers. Laura isn't a stranger. I wasn't talking about Laura. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Then Mom said, "Let's not turn lunch into something." I took a bite of cold potato and let it go. Destiny still found ways into the planning. She asked Dad for the guest parking map. She called the rental company about chair placement. She told the caterer she was my sister and wanted to confirm their arrival window. Every time I objected, she called it helping. Mom said, "You know how she is, give her one little job." So I asked Destiny to arrange the welcome table. She reacted as if I'd handed her a mop. "You want me to put out the guest book? And the place cards? That's it? That's what we need." She agreed, but she kept asking questions about everything else. 2 weeks before the wedding, she asked who had final authority with Laura. "I do," I said. "What if there's a flower emergency?" Then Laura calls me. "On your wedding morning?" "Yes." Destiny looked toward Mom. "See, this is what I mean. She won't delegate." I was standing in my parents' kitchen holding a stack of folded napkins. Mom was writing table numbers in gold ink. "I hired Laura so there won't be an emergency," I said. Destiny shrugged. "Flowers die. I remember that sentence now. At the time, it sounded like one more small jab. 3 days before the wedding, Laura texted me at 10 in the morning. "Everything looks good. Final cuts tomorrow. See you Saturday." I replied with a heart and asked whether the Emily roses were opening. She wrote, "6 perfect ones. Your grandmother timed them well." That evening, I went to the greenhouse after closing. Keith was locking the fertilizer shed. He handed me the keys to the main building and told me not to stay too late. The beds were quiet. Rain tapped against the glass roof. I walked to the arbor and checked the 6 roses Laura had marked with narrow white ribbons. They were still there. I touched one carefully. The petals were firm and cool. On Friday, Christian and I had dinner alone. We ordered sandwiches and ate them at the kitchen counter because neither of us wanted a rehearsal dinner. My phone rang twice. The first call was Mom asking whether Destiny could bring 2 extra decorative signs. The second was Dad asking where to park the catering van. Laura didn't call. I had no reason to expect she would. The next morning, I arrived at the greenhouse a little after 7. The ceremony was scheduled for 11. The air was already warm and the gravel was damp from overnight rain. The rental chairs were in place. The arbor looked bare. I walked closer and saw the white ribbons on 6 empty stems. For a second, I felt relieved. Laura had made the cuts. Then her delivery van didn't arrive. At 7:30, Mom said florists always ran late. At 8, Destiny showed up carrying 2 wooden signs I hadn't approved. One said, "Choose a seat, not a side." The other had our names painted in curling gold letters. She propped the larger sign beside the greenhouse entrance. "Where are the flowers?" she asked. "I'm waiting for Laura." Destiny checked her phone. "That's not good. She has time." At 8:20, a white cargo van pulled onto the gravel. It wasn't Laura's van. A man I didn't recognize got out and opened the back. He asked me to sign his delivery screen. The company name on his shirt belonged to a wholesale courier out of Asheville. I said, "These are supposed to be coming from Stone and Vine." He looked at his screen. "I've got Stephen's wedding, Chestnut Ridge Road. Who gave you the order?" "I just deliver them, ma'am." There were 9 boxes. He started unloading them before I answered. The first box was warm. The second held pale pink roses with brown edges. The third had white carnations, stalk, and several bundles of leatherleaf fern. I hadn't ordered any of those. Some stems were crushed. Others had gone soft at the neck. The water packs were almost dry. Dad came across the lot while I was opening the 4th box. "What happened?" he asked. "This isn't my order." Mom followed him. "Can any of it be used?" "That's not the point." "Well, we need to know what to do." I called Laura. The call went to voicemail. I called again. Destiny crouched beside one box and lifted a wilted rose. She rolled the stem between her fingers, then let it drop. "You can still make something," she said. "You're good at rescuing flowers." It sounded like a compliment. It felt like an instruction. Christian found me beside the loading area with my phone in one hand and a dead rose in the other. He looked into the boxes, then at my face. "We can delay," he said. "Dad answered before I did. People are already arriving, so they can wait." Mom lowered her voice. "Emily doesn't want her wedding remembered for a scene. I hadn't said that." Dad called Laura's number from his own phone. He listened, ended the call, and slipped the phone back into his pocket. "Straight to voicemail," he said. "It's obviously a florist's mix-up." Destiny stood beside him. "Exactly. It's awful, but it's not personal." I looked at the empty cut stems on the arbor. Then I looked at the boxes from a wholesaler I had never used. I was upset, but I still believed the simplest explanation. Somewhere, somebody had attached the wrong label. Laura had missed a confirmation. A delivery company had switched 2 weddings. That was what my family kept telling me. Mom touched my arm. "Go get dressed. We'll handle this." "What are you going to do?" "Make it work. I need to talk to Laura." "After the ceremony," Dad said. "You can deal with the business side later." Christian waited for me to decide. I looked toward the parking area. Guests were getting out of their cars. My aunt was carrying a wrapped gift. Someone from the catering team was asking Destiny where to set the drink station. I handed Christian my phone. "Give me 10 minutes," I said. Then I took off my good shoes, put on the rubber clogs I kept by the greenhouse door, and started sorting the flowers. Laura's assistant arrived 20 minutes later, pale and breathless. She said Laura had been sent to the emergency room with a kidney stone before dawn. She didn't know why a wholesale courier had delivered the order. She had only been told to come help arrange it. Together, we found enough usable stems for the tables. My bouquet was harder. I asked about the 6 roses from the arbor. Laura's assistant stared at me. "They weren't at the shop. She cut them yesterday. I didn't see them." I walked outside and checked the discarded paper around the boxes. No cream roses, no rosemary, nothing from Rose's beds. Destiny came through the door carrying my dress bag. "Mom says you have to get ready." "1 minute. You've been saying that for half an hour." I held up one of the wilted pink roses. "These came from a wholesaler. Laura's assistant doesn't know why." Destiny sighed, then asked for a refund. "That doesn't explain where my flowers went." "Emily, this is exactly what Mom was worried about." "What is?" "You getting stuck on a detail and ruining the whole day for yourself." I set the rose on the work table. "My wedding flowers aren't a detail." "No, but the marriage is supposed to matter more." She said it gently. That was what made it work. I washed my hands, changed my shoes, and followed her upstairs. We were married at 11:40. Christian kept one hand around mine through the whole ceremony. When he saw my bouquet, he didn't pretend it was fine. He leaned close and said, "We'll figure it out." Afterward, guests praised the greenhouse. They praised the food. Several people told me the flowers looked romantic and rustic. I thanked them. Destiny posted photographs before dinner ended. She chose one where the damaged edges of my bouquet didn't show. That night, after Christian and I left, I put the bouquet in the small refrigerator at our rental cabin. I told him I wanted to preserve it until I could speak to Laura. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. On the bottom of one stem, beneath a strip of wet paper, there was a blue wholesale stamp. I photographed it. Then I turned off the refrigerator light and closed the door. The next morning, the petals had darkened around the edges. Christian was making coffee in the cabin's narrow kitchen. I took the bouquet from the refrigerator and set it on the table beside the window. In daylight, it looked worse. Several roses had folded inward. The fern was shedding onto the table. One piece of stalk had gone translucent near the base. Christian handed me a mug. "What are you looking for?" "I don't know yet." I turned the stamped stem until I could read the full name. Blue Ridge Continental Growers. Under that was a batch code and a date. I searched the name on my phone. The company had a warehouse outside Asheville. They sold imported and domestically grown flowers to retail shops across western North Carolina. Their website showed bundles of the same pale pink rose. The varietal name was printed beneath the photograph. Sweet Promise. I knew that rose. It bruised easily and didn't hold well in heat. I would never have chosen it for an outdoor June wedding. Is that the wholesaler? Christian asked. Yes. Does Laura use them? Probably. Most florists around here use more than one supplier, so the stamp doesn't prove anything. No. He nodded and sat across from me. But you photographed it anyway. I photograph damage when a vendor order goes wrong. You're not working. I know. We were supposed to leave that afternoon for 4 days near Charleston. The cabin had been a practical place to stay after the wedding, so we wouldn't have to drive far while tired. Our suitcases were still in the car except for one overnight bag. I had promised Christian I wouldn't spend our honeymoon dealing with flowers. He hadn't asked me to make that promise. I'd made it because I knew myself. I wrapped the bouquet loosely in damp paper, returned it to the refrigerator, and put my phone face down. I'll deal with it when we get home, I said. Christian took a sip of coffee. Deal with it how? Talk to Laura. Find out what happened. Ask for the original order. Okay. He didn't say I should let it go. He also didn't feed my suspicion before I had one. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. We left the cabin after lunch. For 4 days, I did what I'd said. We walked near the water, ate too much seafood, and slept late. I kept my phone in my bag during meals. I didn't call Laura. Mom called twice. The first time, she wanted to know whether we liked Charleston. The second time, she asked if I'd heard from the photographer. Then she said, I hope you're not still upset about the flowers. I was sitting on a bench outside a small bookstore. Christian had gone inside to find a restroom. I haven't thought about them today. That was almost true. Good, because the pictures Destiny posted looked beautiful. I saw them. She fixed the color on your bouquet. You can't even tell. Why did she need to fix it? Mom paused. You know what I mean. She brightened everything. She removed the brown edges. Emily, are we really going to argue about photo editing? I'm not arguing. I just don't want you coming home ready to punish everyone because a florist made a mistake. I watched a delivery truck stop at the corner. The driver carried 2 boxes into a restaurant. Who is everyone? I asked. What? You said I shouldn't punish everyone. Laura made the mistake, according to you. Who else would I be punishing? Mom exhaled into the phone. It's an expression. I've never heard it used that way. You're picking at my words now. Christian came out of the bookstore and saw my face. He sat at the far end of the bench without interrupting. I said, I'm going to ask Laura what happened. That isn't punishment. Just remember she was in the emergency room. I know, she probably feels terrible. I'm not calling to make her feel worse. Good. Then enjoy your honeymoon. Mom ended the call before I could answer. Christian looked at me. What was that? Apparently asking about the order would punish everyone. Everyone being Laura? She didn't say. He took my hand. We sat there until the delivery truck pulled away. When we returned to Hendersonville, the preserved bouquet was gone. The cabin cleaner had thrown it away. That was reasonable. I hadn't labeled it and we had checked out. I still had the stamped stem because I'd cut off the bottom section and sealed it in a sandwich bag before we left. I put the bag in the top drawer of my studio desk. Then I went back to work. The week after my wedding was busy. 2 restaurant accounts needed their Monday deliveries. A bride had changed her color palette 6 weeks before her ceremony. One of my coolers began making a clicking sound, so I spent part of Tuesday waiting for a repair technician who arrived 3 hours late and called every flower a carnation. Normal problems helped. They had edges. I knew what to do with them. On Wednesday afternoon, Laura texted me. I'm so sorry I haven't called. I heard the delivery was a mess. Can we talk tomorrow? I replied, yes, I'm at the studio after 10. She didn't answer that evening. At 10:15 the next morning, she called. Her voice sounded tired. I owe you an enormous apology, she said. I'm mortified. What happened? I don't have a good answer yet. I had a kidney stone. I went to the emergency room around 4 that morning, and everything fell apart. I heard. Are you all right? Yes. Sore and embarrassed, but fine. I'm glad you're okay. Thank you. And I know that doesn't fix your wedding. No, but I'm not blaming you for being sick. She was quiet for a moment. I appreciate that. I leaned against my work table. A bucket of white snapdragons stood beside me. Who sent the wholesale order? My assistant thought it had already been scheduled. Scheduled by whom? I'm still sorting through that. Was it attached to my account? Yes. What happened to the flowers you cut from the greenhouse? Another pause. I didn't cut them. I straightened. You texted me and said you had 6 perfect ones. I marked 6. I was going to cut them Friday morning. They were cut when I checked Saturday. Then my assistant may have picked them up. She said they weren't at the shop. I know, she told me. Did someone else collect them? I don't know. The answer came too quickly. I ran my thumb along a water ring on the metal table. Can you send me my final invoice? Of course. And the original work order? Sure. The one with the stem counts. I know which one you mean. I waited. Laura said, I'll send everything this afternoon. Thank you. I really am sorry, Emily. I know. Her email arrived after 6. The subject line said Stephen's Wedding Records. There were 2 attachments. One was a payment receipt. The other was a 1-page invoice with a list of flowers. The list wasn't mine. It showed pale pink roses, white carnations, white stock, and leather leaf fern. It also listed standard greenery package, florist's choice. At the bottom was a note. Customer approved substitution based on seasonal availability. I read the page twice. Then I opened the confirmation text on my phone. The text from March showed my actual order. Cream greenhouse roses, white lisianthus, green hellebore, rosemary, 6 cuttings from the climbing rose beside the arbor. The confirmation number was SVF-4-2-8-1. The invoice Laura had emailed was SVF-4-2-9-7. I took screenshots of both and printed the invoice. Christian came into the studio through the back door around 7. He carried takeout from a Thai place near his office. You forgot dinner, he said. I forgot to answer one text. You also forgot dinner. He set the bag on my desk and looked at the pages in front of me. What did Laura say? She sent me the wrong invoice, wrong customer. It has my name, our wedding date, and the greenhouse address. I handed him both printouts. He read them standing up. The flower lists are different. Yes. And the numbers. Yes. Could the second one be a revision? That's what it looks like. Did you revise it? No. Did Laura? She didn't say. He put the pages down carefully. What does customer-approved substitution mean? It means somebody told the florist they could change the order. Could Laura have typed that to cover herself? She could have. Do you think she did? I don't know. That was the point where I stopped treating the wedding flowers as an unpleasant mistake. Until then, I'd been waiting for an explanation. Now I decided to check each fact myself. I opened a new folder on my computer. I named it Wedding Floral Order. I saved the original confirmation screenshots, Laura's email, the new invoice, and the photograph of the wholesale stamp. Then I took out a notebook and wrote 4 questions. Who authorized the substitution? Who ordered from Blue Ridge Continental? Who cut Rosa's 6 roses? Why did the invoice number change? Christian unpacked the food while I wrote. Are you calling Laura again? He asked. Tomorrow. Why not now? I want to know what I'm asking before she has time to answer around it. He looked at the notebook. That sounds like you think she's lying. I think she knows more than she said. We ate at the work table. I didn't mention my family. There was nothing connecting them to the invoice. Mom's strange wording bothered me, but strange wording wasn't evidence. Destiny's comments bothered me, but Destiny made comments about everything. At 9 the next morning, I called Stone Vine. A woman named Melissa answered. I knew her slightly from wholesale pickup mornings. Is Laura available? I asked. She's with a customer. Can I take a message? I have a question about my wedding invoice. Oh, Emily, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Laura sent me invoice number 4297. I'm trying to find out when it was created. I heard typing. That one was closed the Monday after your wedding. Created, not closed. Let me see. More typing. It says June 17th. That was 3 days before the wedding. What time? 2:46. In the afternoon? Yes. Was it entered as a new order or a revision? I can't tell from this screen. My original number was 4281. Can you see that one? The typing stopped. Hold on. I waited while the shop music played in the background. It was an acoustic version of a song I recognized but couldn't name. Melissa returned. That one is marked superseded. By whom? It doesn't show a name here. Is there a note? I'm probably not supposed to read account notes. It's my account. I know, I just don't want Laura mad at me. Then don't read it. Tell me whether there is one. Another pause. Yes. Does it say I approved the change? I should get Laura. Melissa, did you speak to me that week? No. Did you see me in the shop? No. Did someone else come in? I wasn't working Wednesday afternoon. Who was? Laura and Jamie, I think. The shop door chimed in the background. Melissa lowered her voice. Laura's back. I'm transferring you. Before I could respond, the line clicked. Laura answered with a cautious hello. I just spoke to Melissa, I said. I know. She told me the invoice was created Wednesday afternoon. Laura didn't answer. You sent me a text that morning saying everything looked good. I remember. So what changed between 10 in the morning and 2:46? I need to pull the full file. You sent me the file. I sent the invoice. You said you were sending everything. I thought I had. I looked at my notebook. Did you replace my order? No. Did someone ask you to replace it? I don't want to answer from memory. It was 3 weeks ago. I handle a lot of orders. This one ended with dead flowers at my wedding. Her breath came through the line. I know. Then please don't tell me it blended in. I'm not saying that. What are you saying? She lowered her voice. I'm saying I need to look at the paper copy before I tell you anything else. That caught me. You use digital invoices for billing. Large custom orders also get a written change slip if somebody comes into the shop. Did somebody come into the shop? I need to check. Who? Emily, I said I need to check. I stood very still. What does the account note say? I'd rather talk in person. Why? Because this conversation is getting uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable when I opened 9 boxes of dead flowers. I know. That's why I want to be careful. She asked if I could come to the shop at 4. I arrived 10 minutes early. Stone Vine was in a narrow building on Church Street with a green awning and 2 tall front windows. A delivery van was parked in the alley. Through the glass, I could see Laura behind the counter speaking to an older couple. I waited in my car until they left. Laura locked the front door after I entered, though the sign said the shop remained open for another hour. Her face was pale. She'd lost weight since the planning meeting, or maybe she was still recovering. I'm not here to threaten you, I said. I know. I want my order records. I understand. Then show them to me. She led me past the design counter into the back office. There were flower catalogs stacked on a chair and invoices clipped to a board. A large 3-part carbon book lay open on the desk. Laura sat down but didn't invite me to. We use these for major changes made in person, she said. The customer gets the top copy, the shop keeps the second. The third goes to our bookkeeper with the weekly receipts. I looked at the book. What did mine say? I don't know. You told me to come here so you could check. I did check. She turned the book toward me. The numbered pages jumped from 4289 to 4291. The sheet between them had been torn out so roughly that a thin blue strip remained caught beside the binding. Laura touched that strip with one finger. Your change order was 4290, she said. Where's the shop copy? It's gone. Who removed it? I don't know. Who signed it? She looked at the locked front door, then back at me. That's the part I should have asked before I accepted it. I looked at the missing page again. What exactly did the person tell you? Laura rubbed both hands over her face. That you were worried the greenhouse roses wouldn't hold up in the heat. I never said that. I understand that now. Who came in? The woman said she was helping with the wedding. She knew your name, the date, the delivery time, and the flower list. That doesn't answer my question. I didn't ask for identification. Had you met her before? Laura looked toward the office doorway. Maybe at the greenhouse walkthrough, there were people coming and going that day. There hadn't been many. Keith had been there. Christian stopped by near the end. Destiny arrived for 10 minutes to ask about rental access, though I hadn't invited her. What did she look like? Blonde hair, around our age, maybe a little older. She wore large sunglasses most of the time. That description could have fit Destiny. It could also have fit several women who worked in the local event industry. What name did she give you? I don't remember. You wrote a change slip. She initialed it. I didn't write down her full name. What initials? I don't remember those either. I watched her. You're asking me to believe you changed my entire wedding order for someone whose name you don't know. She had the information. Information isn't authorization. I know that. She also had to pay the difference. Laura nodded. How? Card. Whose card? I don't keep card numbers in the office. You ran it. Jamie may have run it. You said you accepted the change. I accepted the request. Jamie processed the payment. Is Jamie here? No, she's on a delivery. What did the substitution cost? $640. I stared at her. The original order had already been paid in full. Whoever changed it had spent another $640 to replace fresh greenhouse roses with imported stems, carnations, and basic fern. That wasn't a cheaper correction, I said. No. So why did it cost more? Rush freight. Holiday weekend pricing. The wholesaler charged for dedicated delivery. And nobody thought that was strange? Laura folded her hands. I thought your family had decided the greenhouse flowers were too risky. The woman said you didn't want to talk about it because you were embarrassed. Embarrassed about what? She said the beds had a fungal problem. I almost laughed. A fungal problem serious enough to threaten the wedding crop would have been visible throughout the greenhouse. Keith would have known. I would have known. Laura had walked those beds herself. You believe that? I believed something had changed after my last visit. You could have called me. Yes. You texted me that morning. I know. You could have asked in the text. Yes. Her agreement made it harder to keep pressing. She wasn't defending the choice. She was sitting in front of me, admitting she had failed to verify it. I pointed toward the carbon book. When did you notice the page was missing? Today. Who has access to this office? My employees, the cleaner, sometimes my bookkeeper, and customers? Not normally. Was the woman brought back here? No. We filled out the slip at the front counter. Then how would she remove your copy? I don't know that she did. The wording mattered. Do you think someone on your staff removed it? I'm not accusing anyone. Neither am I. It sounds like you are. I'm asking who could reach the book. Laura stood and walked to the filing cabinet. She opened the top drawer and pulled out a manila folder with my name written on the tab. Inside were my original consultation notes, a printout of the March order, and Laura's cutting list from the greenhouse. There was no change slip. She gave me copies of everything. I'll ask Jamie about the card, she said. When? When she gets back. Call me while you're both here. Laura hesitated. Please don't contact my staff directly. I wasn't planning to. I need you to let me handle that part. You had 3 weeks. Her mouth tightened. I was in the hospital for one morning. I know you're angry. I'm not asking you to manage my mood. I'm asking for records. She looked down at the folder. I'll call you by tomorrow. I put the copies into my bag. At the doorway, I stopped. Did that woman use the words, the family? Laura looked surprised. What? When she said the order was authorized, what did she actually say? Laura thought for a moment. She said, the family has decided. Not Emily has decided. No. That was the first time the problem moved outside Laura's shop. I left through the alley because the front door was still locked. The sun had heated the brick wall and the air smelled like wet cardboard from the recycling bins. I sat in my car and added one question to my notebook. Which family member knew enough to change the order? I didn't write Destiny's name. Not yet. Before driving home, I called Keith. He answered over the sound of a motor. Can I call you back when I shut this thing off? I just have one question. Did the greenhouse have any fungus problems before the wedding? The motor stopped. What kind? Anything involving the rose beds? No. Nothing that would make the cuttings unsafe? Unsafe for what? A wedding order. Emily, those plants were clean. I know. I needed to hear you say it. What's going on? I'm checking something with Laura. About the flowers that showed up? Yes. Keith went quiet. I wondered about those, he said. Why? They weren't ours. I knew that. No. I mean, they weren't even close. Your grandmother would have sent them back from the gate. Despite everything, I smiled. Did you see anyone cut the 6 roses at the arbor? I found the stems Saturday morning. Thought Laura had done it. She says she didn't. The line crackled. Then who did? That's what I'm trying to find out. You want me to check the security camera? I had forgotten about the camera over the loading entrance. Yes. It's an old system. Saves about 2 weeks if nobody exports anything. The wedding had been almost a month earlier. Can you still look? I can look. Don't get hopeful. He called me that evening. The camera files had already overwritten themselves. He could see the current week and part of the previous one. Nothing from the wedding remained. I'm sorry, he said. It was worth checking. I should have saved it. You didn't know. Still. Keith, you didn't do anything wrong. He gave a low grunt that meant he didn't fully agree. Before ending the call, he said, Your dad was asking me about changing that camera system. When? Couple days after the wedding. My hand tightened around the phone. What did he ask? How long it keeps recordings? Whether we needed to pay for more storage? Did he say why? He said insurance. Did he ask you to delete anything? No. Did he touch the system? Not that I saw. I wrote down the date and exactly what Keith remembered. It didn't prove anything. Dad served as a trustee. Asking about property security was within his role. The timing still bothered me. Laura called the following afternoon. I was wiring a large arrangement for a memorial service. I put her on speaker and kept working. I talked to Jamie, she said. She remembers the transaction. Did she recognize the person? She remembers a blonde woman with sunglasses. What name? She doesn't remember. What card was used? A business card. Which business? She couldn't see the name clearly. Can you pull the receipt? That receipt would have gone with the missing slip. What about your payment processor? I requested the record. When will you have it? They said several business days. Will it show the name? It should show the card holder and the last 4 digits. I set down the wire cutters. Send it to me when it arrives. I will. Did Jamie remove the shop copy? No. You asked her? Yes. She said she put the yellow copy in the folder and the pink accounting copy in the Friday packet. Was the yellow copy there when you went to the hospital? I didn't check. Who prepared the Friday packet? I did. And the pink copy was in it? I think so. You think? I remember seeing a change slip for your account. I didn't study it. Where's the packet now? With my outside bookkeeper. That gave me one clean place to look, but Laura moved on before I could ask for a name. There's something else, she said. The woman brought a printed vendor schedule from your wedding. I stopped moving. What schedule? It listed the photographer, caterer, rentals, florist, and arrival times. That's why I believed she was authorized. Only a few people had the full schedule. Christian and I had it. Our designated phone contact had it. Mom had asked for a copy, and Dad received one because he was opening the greenhouse gate. Destiny had called the rental company without permission. She could have gathered the information herself, or Mom could have given her the schedule. Do you still have the printout? I asked. No. She took it with her. Was there a heading? I don't remember. Logo? Possibly. Bright occasions? Laura was silent for a beat too long. I don't want to guess. That isn't a guess if you saw it. I don't remember clearly enough to put that in writing. I looked across my studio at the open folder on my desk. I didn't ask you to put anything in writing. I know. That told me she had already considered what she might have to say later. Who is your bookkeeper? I asked. I need to speak to her first. Why? Because these are business records. They relate to my account, and she has other client records in the same packet. I'm not asking for the packet. I'm asking for my slip. I'll call her. Today? Yes. Laura sounded eager to end the conversation. I let her. On Sunday, my parents hosted lunch. They did that twice a month. Dad grilled something regardless of weather, Mom made too many side dishes, and Destiny arrived after everyone else. Christian offered to come. I told him I wanted to raise the invoice calmly and watch how each person responded. You don't have to do that alone, he said. I know. Are you sure? Yes. He kissed my forehead before I left. Call me if lunch becomes a hostage situation. Dad was slicing grilled chicken when I arrived. Mom set a glass of tea at my usual place. Destiny came 20 minutes later, wearing a white linen jumpsuit and carrying no food. We ate outside on the screened porch. The conversation stayed ordinary until Mom asked whether Laura had refunded me. No, I said. I haven't asked for a refund. Destiny spooned corn salad onto her plate. Why not? Because I'm still trying to find out who changed the order. Her spoon struck the plate. Mom said, Changed it how? The original order was replaced 3 days before the wedding. Dad kept cutting his chicken. By Laura? He asked. She says somebody came into the shop. Destiny looked at me. Somebody like who? She wouldn't give me a name. Then she's covering herself. Maybe. Mom reached for the tea pitcher. That sounds like the obvious answer. The person had our full vendor schedule. Dad finally looked up. A lot of people had that schedule. Who did you give yours to? No one. Mom. She spilled a little tea beside her glass. I may have printed an extra copy. For whom? I don't remember. Destiny leaned back. You're acting like someone forged state documents. They changed roses. They changed a paid order and spent another $640. Dad's knife stopped, only for a second. Then he set it across his plate. Whose money? He asked. That's one of the things I'm waiting to learn. Mom wiped the spilled tea with her napkin. This is getting unpleasant. I'm asking what happened. No, Destiny said. You're building a case because your wedding wasn't perfect. I turned to her. Did Mom give you the vendor schedule? She might have. Did you go to Stone and Vine? No. The answer came flat and fast. Did you ask anyone else to go? Destiny laughed once. Listen to yourself. Dad pushed his plate away. Emily, your mother and I have spent 2 years keeping the greenhouse running while you built your studio. We've handled bills, taxes, payroll, repairs, and every other headache that property creates. A florist messes up, and now you're questioning everyone at lunch. I asked about a schedule. You're implying more. What am I implying? He didn't answer. Destiny reached across the table and touched Dad's arm. I've already offered to help with the property, she said. My vendor contacts could save money. I could oversee events, rentals, all of it. Then Emily wouldn't have to feel like every detail is resting on her. I looked at her hand on his sleeve. I didn't ask you to oversee the greenhouse. I'm offering. The greenhouse isn't an event company. It hosts events. It grows plants. Destiny smiled without warmth. That attitude is why it'll never make real money. Mom said my name in warning. Dad picked up his knife again. We'll discuss the property another time, he said. Today we're having lunch. I understood what he wanted. Drop the flowers, thank them for managing the greenhouse. Let Destiny attach herself to whatever came next. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. Did either of you authorize a change to my floral order? Mom looked offended. Dad looked tired. Destiny looked directly at me. All three said no. Not one of them asked why someone would do it. I stayed another 5 minutes. Mom offered pie. Dad asked whether I wanted coffee. Destiny started talking about a hotel opening in Asheville as if nothing had happened. I said I had work to finish and left. By the time I reached my car, Dad was behind me. Emily. I opened the driver's door but didn't get in. He stopped beside the hood. You upset your mother. I asked her a question. You interrogated her. I asked if she gave Destiny the vendor schedule. Destiny said she didn't go to the florist. I heard her. Then let it rest. Someone spent $640. Dad glanced toward the house. Through the porch screen, I could see Mom collecting plates. You'll get your refund, he said. How do you know? Because that's what businesses do when they make mistakes. But Laura says a customer authorized it. She's protecting herself. That's what Destiny said. Because it's obvious. He spoke slowly, like I was making him repeat something simple. I put my bag on the passenger seat. Why did you ask Keith how long the greenhouse cameras keep recordings? His face changed. It wasn't guilt exactly. It was attention. I'm a trustee. I'm responsible for security. Why ask 2 days after the wedding? I don't remember when I asked. Keith does. Dad's mouth tightened. You're dragging employees into a family issue now? I asked whether the camera caught whoever cut the roses. Keith works for the greenhouse. He doesn't need to be involved in this nonsense. The roses were greenhouse property. They were 6 flowers. They were mine. The word came out sharper than I intended. Dad looked at me for a few seconds. The greenhouse isn't yours yet, he said. I didn't answer. He softened his voice almost immediately. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you said. I meant the trust hasn't transferred. Your mother and I are still responsible for operations. I know how the trust works. Do you? Because you haven't handled the books. You haven't dealt with insurance or county inspections. You come out, work with the plants, and leave the administrative burden to us. I thought you said you were happy to do it. We are. That doesn't mean it's easy. A fly landed near the windshield. I watched it move along the glass. Do you want to keep the greenhouse? I asked. Dad looked almost insulted. No. Rosa left it to you. That wasn't my question. I don't know what you're trying to start, neither do I. That was the honest answer. I drove away before the conversation could circle again. For the next 2 days, I rehearsed different confrontations in my head. In one, I told Destiny I knew she had gone to Stonevine. I didn't know that. In another, I told Dad his question about the cameras proved he was involved. It didn't. I pictured laying the 2 invoice numbers on Mom's kitchen table. I could already hear her telling me paper didn't matter as much as family. Every version ended with them denying everything and asking why I wanted to ruin the summer. So I didn't confront anyone. On Tuesday morning, I went to the greenhouse. Keith was replacing a cracked pane in greenhouse number 3. He had set a folding ladder between 2 rows of potted gardenias. The air inside was damp and warm enough to fog my glasses. He climbed down when he saw me. If this is about those cameras, I still can't bring the old footage back. It isn't. I took off my glasses and wiped them on my shirt. I need to understand how Dad and Mom have been paying greenhouse expenses. Keith glanced toward the door. From the operating account. Who approves purchases? Depends. Regular supplies don't need much. Big equipment goes through your dad. Do you keep a record? I keep my own. Why? Because your grandmother taught me to. He said it as if there were no other sensible answer. Can I see it? Keith looked at the ladder, then back at me. Does your dad know you're asking? No. Should he? I'm the beneficiary. That wasn't my question. I put my glasses back on. I don't know what Dad knows I'm asking. Keith studied me for a moment. Come on. The greenhouse office was in a low brick building connected to the main glass house. It had 2 rooms, a small bathroom, and an air conditioner that rattled whenever it started. Dad used the front office. Keith used the back one. His desk was covered with seed catalogs, work orders, and yellow legal pads. He moved a tray of soil samples off a wooden chair so I could sit. From the bottom drawer, he removed a green ledger. It wasn't an official bank record. Keith wrote down every order he requested when it arrived, what it cost, and which greenhouse used it. Rosa had started the system years earlier. Keith had continued it after she died. The entries were plain: potting mix, $812. Replacement heater valve, $436. Shade cloth, $1,090. Seasonal labor, listed by week. Each item had an invoice number beside it. "Does this match the operating account?" I asked. "Most of the time." "What doesn't?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a ring of keys from his belt and unlocked a gray filing cabinet. From the top drawer, he removed a stack of monthly account summaries held together with a binder clip. "Your dad gives me these so I can reconcile farm purchases," he said. "I don't see full banking information, just the expense report. How far back? About a year in that stack." He put it in front of me. The first page covered the previous June. Most entries matched his ledger: soil, fuel, payroll, utilities. 3 entries didn't. Equipment deposit, $2,400. Operations consulting, $1,800. Vendor services, $950. I pointed to the equipment deposit. "What equipment?" "Don't know. Did anything arrive that month?" "Not for that amount." "What about consulting?" No consultant came through me. Could Dad have hired someone for taxes or legal work? Maybe. That's why I didn't say anything. I turned to the next month. There was another consulting charge, $2,100. The month after that showed equipment repair for $1,750. What was repaired? Nothing I requested. Could it have been the delivery truck? Truck repair goes through Morrow Fleet. That charge is listed separately. He pointed to a smaller entry farther down. I kept turning pages. The amounts varied, but the language repeated. Consulting, equipment, vendor support, special services. They appeared once or twice each month. Some were round numbers. Others looked exact enough to belong to invoices. None matched Keith's ledger. I took out my phone and opened the calculator. "Has Dad ever asked you to classify purchases this way?" I asked. "No. Did you ask him what they were?" "Twice." "What did he say?" "The first time, he said administrative costs. The second time, he said not every expense runs through the growing side. The unexplained entries in that 1 year added up to just over $30,000. I checked the total again. My skin had gone cold despite the heat. If these aren't greenhouse expenses, what are they? Keith leaned back against his desk. "I was hoping you could tell me." That was when the dead flowers stopped looking like the whole problem. If you would have opened the books too, leave the single word ledger in the comments. I photographed each monthly page. Keith watched without speaking. When I finished, I arranged them in their original order and fastened the binder clip. "Why didn't you bring this to me?" I asked. "You weren't running the property yet. I'm the beneficiary. Your dad's the trustee. So you thought he had an explanation. I thought he should. That's not the same thing." "No." The air conditioner kicked on with a hard rattle. Keith picked up the green ledger and turned back several pages. "Your grandmother watched every dollar," he said. "If I ordered 2 extra bags of fertilizer, she wanted to know where they went." "When did these entries start?" "The summaries I kept only go back a year." "Why only a year?" "Before that, your dad didn't give me copies regularly." "What changed?" "I asked for them." "When?" Keith flipped to a page near the front of his ledger. "Last summer. We had a supplier claim an invoice was overdue. Your dad said it had been paid. I wanted the summaries so I could keep track." "Was it paid?" "Eventually." "From the operating account?" "I assume so." I looked at the dates again. The unexplained expenses weren't clustered around the wedding. They formed a pattern. Someone had been taking money out month after month. I still didn't know who received it. Dad might have made bad purchases. He might have hired someone without telling Keith. He might have classified legitimate expenses carelessly. But $30,000 was too much to dismiss as vague bookkeeping. "Who prepares these summaries?" I asked. "Your dad?" "Does Mom see them?" "I don't know. She's also a co-trustee." "I know. Does she sign anything?" "I've seen her sign checks when your dad was out of town." "I don't know whether she reviews the reports." That distinction mattered. I wrote it down. Does Destiny have any formal role here? No. Does she use the office? Sometimes. For what? Printing, meeting vendors. Your dad lets her use the conference table when she's working an event nearby. Does she have a key? Keith hesitated. I think so. Who gave it to her? Your dad. When? After Rosa died. I looked toward the wall between us and Dad's office. Can she access the account? Not through anything I have. What about Dad's computer? He keeps it locked. Does she know the password? I wouldn't know. I stood and carried the stack back to the filing cabinet. Keith stopped me. You need to be careful how you ask about this. Why? Because your dad got defensive when I asked about one charge. Which charge? He opened the ledger to a page from February. The bank summary listed greenhouse equipment, $2,600. Keith's notes showed no equipment purchased that month. I asked whether I'd missed an order, he said. Your dad told me to stay on the production side. What did you say? That production gets difficult when money leaves the account for equipment I never see. What happened? He didn't give me another summary for 2 months. I put the papers away and locked the drawer. Who else knows you kept these? Your dad knows I keep records. I don't think he knows I kept every summary. Don't tell him I photographed them. Keith's expression changed. You think the flower order is connected to this? I don't know. How would it be? I don't know that either. It was frustrating to keep saying that, but I wasn't going to build certainty out of discomfort. I thanked him and returned to the main greenhouse. Before leaving, I walked to the arbor. New buds had formed below the 6 cut stems. I checked the leaves for mildew, black spot, or rust. There was nothing. The beds were healthy. I took close photographs and saved them with the ones from Laura's file. As I crossed the gravel lot, Dad's truck turned through the gate. He parked beside my car. What are you doing here? He asked through his open window. Checking the rose beds. On a work day? I own a floral studio. Rose beds are work. He shut off the truck and got out. Keith said you were asking questions. I kept my face still. About the camera. He said you were in the office. I used the bathroom. Dad looked toward the brick building. Why didn't you come through the house and say hello? You weren't here. You could have called. I didn't know I needed an appointment. His keys hung from one finger. Among them was the small brass key to the office. You don't, he said. I just don't like employees getting put in the middle. Keith isn't in the middle. He told you about the camera. Then you raised it at lunch. I asked one question. You keep saying that, because I keep asking questions. Dad's jaw moved. The transfer is scheduled for the harvest dinner, he said. Until then, your mother and I are legally responsible for this place. I need you to respect that. The harvest dinner happened every September. Rosa had started it as a thank you meal for family, staff, and regular customers. Cheryl had already chosen that date for the formal trust handover. I respect the trust, I said. That's not what I said. No, it isn't. He walked around the front of his truck. For 1 second, I thought he might ask whether I'd looked at the account summaries. Instead, he said, Destiny was right. You're carrying this flower thing too far. You just told me Keith mentioned the camera. Did he also tell you about the flowers? Dad stopped. You asked him about them. That wasn't my question. He opened the office door. I have work to do. I left without pushing. At the studio, I printed the photographs from Keith's records. I placed them in date order across my desk and compared each entry to his ledger. The mismatch was consistent. The charges usually appeared near the end of the month. They stayed below $3,000. They used descriptions broad enough to avoid pointing toward a real supplier. I opened the trust summary Cheryl had given me after Rosa died. It said my parents could use the operating account only for expenses related to preserving and running the greenhouse. I read that sentence several times. Then I searched my email for every message Dad had sent about property expenses. Most were ordinary: a roof repair, a new pump, a tax payment. One message from the previous November stood out. Dad had asked me whether I planned to keep all greenhouse operations unchanged after the transfer. I'd answered that I wanted to review the books first. He replied, No need to make yourself crazy. Your mother and I will hand you a clean operation. I printed that email too. Laura called near closing time. My bookkeeper found the weekly packet, she said. Is the pink copy there? I haven't seen it myself. What did she say? She said there's a carbon slip attached to a card receipt for $640. My hand stopped over the printer. Whose card? She won't release that over the phone. She says the records need to come through the shop. Then get them. I'm trying. When? Next week. She's away until Monday. Can she scan my slip? She doesn't keep client files at home. I looked at the trust summary beside Dad's email. Does the receipt show whether it was a personal or business card? Laura lowered her voice. She said it appears to be linked to a business account. Which business? She wouldn't say. For the first time, I wondered whether the $640 had come from the greenhouse itself. That thought stayed with me through the weekend. I didn't call Dad. I didn't call Destiny. On Monday morning, I delivered arrangements to a hotel near downtown. The manager wanted white hydrangeas in the lobby in smaller pieces near the elevators. I was carrying an empty bucket back to my van when someone said my name. Ricky Perry was standing beside a loading cart. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years. He'd started Bright Occasions with Destiny in 2018. He handled vendor contracts and budgets while she dealt with clients. Then, in 2023, he left without much explanation. Destiny told everyone he lacked commitment. Ricky said, "I heard you got married." I did. "Congratulations." "Thank you." He looked toward the bucket. "Did you do the flowers?" "No." Something in my answer made him pause. "I saw pictures," he said. "The greenhouse looked good. The greenhouse usually does." A catering employee came through the loading door. Ricky moved his cart aside. He was working for the hotel now. His name badge said Banquet Operations Manager. I asked, "Do you have a minute?" "I've got about 5. We stepped outside near the service entrance. I wasn't sure what I planned to ask. Ricky had left Bright Occasions before Rosa died. He couldn't know what was happening with the greenhouse account. Still, he knew Destiny's business. "Was Bright Occasions in trouble when you left?" I asked. His expression closed. "Why are you asking? I'm trying to understand something. Does Destiny know you're talking to me?" "No." "Then I probably shouldn't answer." "That sounds like yes." He looked back at the loading door. "I left because we disagreed about money." "What kind of disagreement?" "The kind where I wanted bills paid before buying another photo wall." "That sounds like Destiny." It stopped being funny. Someone called Ricky's name from inside. He said, "I need to go. Could I buy you coffee later?" He hesitated. "Not if this is about getting between you and your sister. It's about the greenhouse." That changed his face. He pulled out his phone. "My break is at 2:30. We met at a coffee shop on Main Street. Ricky arrived in his hotel uniform and chose a table near the back. He didn't order anything until I did. Then he asked for plain coffee and waited while the cashier poured it. Once we sat down, he said, "Tell me why the greenhouse matters." I opened my notebook but kept it turned toward me. "Did Destiny ever receive money from my parents?" "You need to be more specific. For Bright Occasions." Ricky stirred cream into his coffee. "When I left, your sister and I were barely speaking. That's not an answer." "No, it isn't." I waited. He set the spoon on a napkin. "In 2023, the company nearly folded." "How close?" "We were behind on rent. 2 vendors had stopped extending credit. We owed deposits for events that hadn't happened yet. Were clients' deposits used for other events?" His eyes lifted to mine. "I'm not discussing client accounts." "Fair enough." That told me enough. "Why did you leave?" "Destiny wanted me to sign a line of credit personally, and you refused. I'd already put in everything I could afford." "What happened after you left?" "She kept the company." "I know. How?" "I assumed your dad helped." "Why?" "Because Destiny said he would." The coffee shop had grown louder. A blender started behind the counter. I waited until it stopped. "When did she say that?" "The week before I left. She said her father wouldn't let the business fail." "Did she call it a loan?" Eventually. What does that mean? Ricky rubbed his thumb against the rim of his cup. About a year after I left, she called me. She wanted the password to an old vendor portal. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. What did she say? She said she'd stabilized everything with a family loan. From Dad? She didn't name him, I assumed. Was it one payment? She said monthly support was easier than one big loan because it didn't attract attention. I stopped writing. Those were her words? Yes. Did she say where the money came from? No. Did she mention the greenhouse? Not in that call. He watched me for a moment. What did you find? I'm not sure yet. That means you found something. I turned the notebook around and showed him a short list of the unexplained expenses. I didn't show account numbers or the full pages. Do any of these amounts look familiar? Ricky read them. 1,800, 2,100, 2,600. He looked at me. Where did you get this? Greenhouse expense summaries. He sat back. I can't tell you those exact payments went to bright occasions. I didn't ask that. You were going to. Do the amounts fit? Yes. How well? He drew my notebook closer. Office rent was $2,400. Storage was about $1,800. The company had a monthly software bill just under $1,000. Those numbers may have changed. What about equipment purchases? Destiny leased most equipment. She liked calling decor equipment because it sounded like an asset. He handed the notebook back. Emily, this is still a guess. I know. Ricky looked down at the copied entries again. There was another call, he said. When? Last fall. What did she want? She wanted me to come back. Why? She'd booked more work than her staff could handle. Did you consider it? No. What did she say about the money? She said the family had finally started investing in her the way they should have years ago. That sounded so much like Destiny that I could hear her voice saying it. Anything else? Ricky took a drink of coffee. She complained about your grandmother. Rosa had been dead for more than a year. I know. What did she say? That Rosa had tied everything up for you. I kept my hands flat on the table. Did she mention the trust? She said the help might end when you took control of the greenhouse. There it was. Not proof, not yet. But the timing had finally found a reason. When did Destiny learn I was getting married? I asked. I don't know. Did she contact you after the engagement? Yes. When? Late spring. This year. Yes. What did she want then? Ricky looked uncomfortable. She asked whether I knew anyone who could review her books quickly. Why? She said she might need to apply for business financing. Did she? I gave her 2 names. I don't know whether she called them. What else did she say? She said her current arrangement had an expiration date. I looked at him. Her words again? Close enough? Did she say what the expiration date was? No, but she asked when your wedding was. The unexplained withdrawals started after Rosa died and Dad gained authority over the operating account. They continued month after month. Destiny had called the payments family support. She knew they might end when I took control. Then she asked about my wedding date. My marriage didn't just give me the property, it put the books in my hands. I thought about Dad telling me the greenhouse wasn't mine yet. Destiny volunteering to oversee events. Mom warning me not to punish everyone. The changed order had made me spend my wedding morning sorting dead flowers while my family told me I couldn't handle one bad detail. If I accepted that version, then Dad and Mom could argue I needed help managing the greenhouse. Destiny could attach herself as an event expert. They could keep signing, keep explaining, and keep the account beyond my reach. Ricky said, "Are you all right?" "Yes." "You don't look all right. I'm doing the timing." He leaned forward. "If your father used greenhouse money for her company, that's not the family loan I thought she meant. What did you think she meant? Personal savings, a home equity line, something they were allowed to spend. So did I. Do your parents know you're looking?" Dad knows I'm asking questions. He doesn't know what Keith showed me. "Who's Keith?" "The greenhouse foreman." Ricky lowered his voice. "You need the receiving side." "What?" "These are withdrawals. They show money left somewhere. They don't show where it landed." "I know." Destiny used more than one business account when I was there. If you want to prove a connection, you need an invoice, a transfer reference, or a matching deposit. I don't have access to her accounts. Then don't accuse her yet. I'm not planning to. He looked relieved. I asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I spent 2 years cleaning up emergencies she called opportunities. That isn't the whole reason." "No." He turned his cup slowly between his hands. "When I left, she told vendors I'd abandoned the company without warning. I gave her 2 months' notice. She told our landlord I had taken money. I hadn't. I decided defending myself to every person would keep me tied to her longer. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you for revenge. I didn't think you were." He glanced at the notebook. "I'm telling you because she believes money becomes hers if she needs it badly enough." I closed the notebook. "Would you repeat what you told me if someone else asked?" "An attorney?" "Possibly." "Yes, but only what I actually heard. That's all I'd ask." Before we left, Ricky wrote the names of the 2 accountants he'd recommended to Destiny. He also wrote the old office rent and storage amounts from memory. I returned to my studio and compared them with Keith's summaries. The figures didn't match every month. They weren't supposed to. Business shortfalls changed. The pattern did match. A large withdrawal appeared near the beginning of most months, when rent would be due. Smaller entries appeared later. Several increased during wedding season, when bright occasions would have needed vendor deposits and temporary staff. I laid the wedding order invoice beside the expense pages. The substitution had cost $640. It happened 3 days before my marriage. The flowers arrived dead. My parents immediately called it a harmless mistake. Destiny told me I couldn't delegate. Dad reminded me I hadn't managed the books. The sabotage wasn't meant to stop the wedding. That would have ended the financial access immediately. It was meant to make the transition messy. If I came out of my own wedding embarrassed, distracted, and unsure of myself, they could offer stability. Dad could keep control of the account. Destiny could move into greenhouse events. The withdrawals could continue under new labels. I still needed the card record. I still needed the missing carbon copy. I still needed the trust language in front of me. But I finally knew what I was looking at. Dad had been using Rose's greenhouse to keep Destiny's failing company alive. And Destiny had damaged my wedding flowers because my marriage put an end date on their money. Knowing it didn't make the next step easier, I had no document showing where the money went. I had no signature on the flower change. If I confronted Dad with what Ricky told me, he could call it gossip. Destiny could say her former business partner was bitter. So I waited for Laura's bookkeeper. On Monday, Laura called just before noon. "She has the packet at her office," she said. "I'm going over at 2. I'm coming with you. I thought you might say that." The bookkeeper, Celia Warren, worked from a small office above an insurance agency. Laura met me at the bottom of the stairs. She was carrying my shop folder and the carbon book in a canvas tote. "Celia won't give you the original," she said. "It's my transaction. It belongs to Stone and Vine's accounting records. I need a certified copy then." Laura stopped on the second step. "Have you spoken to an attorney?" "Not yet." She continued upstairs without answering. Celia had already laid the weekly packet on a conference table. It was a thick envelope containing deposit slips, expense receipts, and pink carbon sheets. She introduced herself, then pointed to 2 chairs. "I need to be clear before we start," she said. "I'm showing this to Emily because Laura authorized access to the records for Emily's order. Nothing else in the packet leaves this office." "I understand," I said. Celia wore thin cotton gloves to handle the carbon pages. She opened the packet and removed a pink sheet. The number at the top was 4290. My order number was written beneath it. For several seconds, I only looked at the page. The handwriting slanted slightly to the right. The capital letters were large. The lowercase letters pressed into each other. Change greenhouse roses to sweet promise pink. Substitute stock. Carnations, leather leaf. No rosemary. Family approved. Do not contact bride. Below that was a line labeled authorized by. Someone had written DS. I knew the handwriting. Destiny made her capital D with a long upper curve that crossed back through the vertical line. She had written our names on birthday cards, Christmas gift tags, and notes left on Mom's refrigerator for most of my life. Still, knowing handwriting wasn't enough. I took out my phone and photographed the page. Celia raised one hand. "I need the whole document visible if you photograph it. I'm not cropping anything." She watched while I took another picture. Laura stood beside the window. "Is that the woman's handwriting?" I asked her. I didn't watch her write every word. "Who filled out the flower list?" I did. "Who wrote family approved? Do not contact bride?" She did. "Did she write the initials?" "Yes." "Did she tell you what they stood for?" Laura rubbed her palms against her trousers. "She said she was your sister." The room became very quiet. "You recognized her?" "Not at first." "You described a blonde woman in sunglasses. That was her." "You knew after the wedding." "I suspected." "You saw her at the greenhouse. She was across the room most of the time. At the shop, her hair was pulled back and she kept the sunglasses on. But you knew enough to avoid saying her name." Laura looked down. "Yes." "Why?" "Because the shop copy was gone. I didn't want to accuse your sister without the record. You also didn't want to admit you let her change my order." "That too." Celia moved the carbon sheet away from my hands. "There's a card receipt attached," she said. The receipt was narrow and badly faded. Celia placed a white sheet beneath it so the print showed more clearly. The charge was $640. The date and time matched the revised invoice. The cardholder line read Barry Stevens. Only the last 4 digits of the card appeared. The merchant record beneath it identified the account type as business purchasing. I read Dad's name again. "Can this be a different Barry Stevens?" Laura asked. Celia looked at her. "Not if the authorization record is accurate." "What business is attached?" I asked. "The processor report doesn't provide a full account name. So this only proves it was Dad's business card. It proves a card registered to Barry Stevens paid this transaction. Can you certify that? I can provide an accounting copy with a signed statement that it was retained in the ordinary course of Stone and Vine's bookkeeping." "What does that mean in normal language?" "It means Laura didn't create this page yesterday." Laura flinched slightly. Celia continued. "The packet reached my office sealed. The carbon sheet and receipt were inside when I opened it. I entered the expense and payment record the following Monday. Did anyone ask you for the packet before now?" "No." "Did Laura know you still had it?" "She knew I retain weekly records. She didn't know which box this one was in." Celia made a color copy and stamped the lower corner. She signed and dated a short statement in front of me. Then she slid both across the table. I read every line before putting them into my folder. Laura sat opposite me. "I'm sorry," she said. "For which part?" "All of it. You believed Destiny because she said she was family. She also knew the order. She knew because Mom gave her the vendor schedule. I should have called you. Yes, I've changed our policy. No order changes without a code from the contracting client. That'll help the next person." Laura nodded. I wasn't ready to make her feel better. I also wasn't going to pretend she had planned the sabotage. She had been careless. Destiny had used that carelessness. Before we left, Laura wrote a statement. She described the visit without adding what she couldn't prove. A woman identifying herself as Destiny Stevens came into Stonevine 3 days before the wedding. She requested substitutions. She said the family had approved them. She instructed Laura not to contact me. She initialed the change slip and provided a card registered to Barry Stevens. Laura signed it. Celia witnessed her signature. I drove straight to Cheryl Barrett's office. I called from the parking lot and said I had a document involving the trust account. Her assistant told me to come upstairs. Cheryl met me in a conference room carrying Rosa's trust file. I placed the carbon copy, card receipt, Laura's statement, and Keith's ledger photographs on the table. She read without interrupting. When she reached the expense summaries, she went back to the first page and began again. "Where did these come from?" she asked. Keith kept the monthly reports Dad gave him. "Does Barry know you have copies?" "No." "Does Sandra?" "No." "Has either of them offered an explanation?" "I haven't shown them." "Good." The word relieved me more than it should have. Cheryl pulled the trust document from her file. "First, we separate what you suspect from what you can demonstrate," she said. "These expense summaries suggest misuse. They don't identify the receiving accounts. I know. The floral record is different." She placed one finger beside the cardholder name. "Your grandmother's operating account has 2 purchasing cards. One is issued to Barry. One is issued to Sandra. Do you have the numbers? I have the account authorization schedule." She found a separate page near the back of the file. Dad's card ended in the same 4 digits as the receipt. I checked twice. Cheryl checked once. "That confirms it?" I asked. "It confirms the payment came from the trust-linked card issued to Barry." She laid the carbon sheet beside the authorization schedule. Destiny's initials were on one page. Dad's name and card number were on the other. The date was 3 days before my wedding. Her hand, his card, on the same transaction. For the first time, I knew the entire chain. Destiny had gone to the shop. She had ordered the substitutions. She had instructed Laura not to call me. She had paid with Dad's greenhouse card. Dad hadn't merely known later. He had financed it. Cheryl opened the trust to a marked section. "Rosa included a trustee forfeiture provision," she said. "I don't remember that. You weren't expected to administer the trust then." She turned the document toward me. The wording was formal, but the rule was simple. If a trustee used operating funds for a personal purpose unrelated to the greenhouse, documented proof shown to the trust attorney ended that trustee's authority immediately. "Does this count as a personal purpose?" I asked. It wasn't a greenhouse expense. The wedding happened at the greenhouse. The venue doesn't change the purpose. This payment purchased replacement flowers for your private wedding after the original order had been paid personally. More importantly, the order intentionally removed greenhouse flowers. There is no reasonable operating justification. What happens to Mom? Your marriage already triggered your ownership. The September meeting was meant to complete the administrative handover and close the interim arrangement cleanly. Barry's authority can be forfeited now. Sandra's interim authority ends with the handover. Can Dad move money before September? Not after I notify the bank. I looked at the pages. If you notify them now, he'll know I have the slip. Yes. Does the clause require immediate notice? It requires me to act when you formally submit the proof. Have I submitted it? Not yet. Right now, you asked for advice and showed me copies. I understood the choice. If Cheryl froze the account that afternoon, Dad and Destiny would learn what I had recovered. They could start explaining before the full records were preserved. They could pressure Mom. They could blame Laura, Keith, or Ricky. The harvest dinner was less than 3 weeks away. Cheryl was already scheduled to attend. The formal handover would place every person in the same room. Can we secure the account records without alerting Dad? I asked. I can request routine pre-transfer statements from the bank. That's normal before the handover. Do it. I'll also order an independent review, but I won't distribute these allegations until you authorize submission. Will waiting let him empty the account? Daily limits prevent a large withdrawal. I can monitor the balance until the dinner. I nodded. Cheryl closed the trust document, then took a small envelope from the file. "Rosa left this for you," she said. "She told me to give it to you if you ever doubted why she chose you." I opened it at the table. Rosa's letter was short. "Emily, you notice what living things need, and you do the work when nobody is looking. The greenhouse needs someone who understands both. Don't confuse being quiet with being unseen. I saw you clearly. Love, Rosa." I read it once, folded it along the original crease, and returned it to the envelope. Then I placed the carbon slip, Dad's card confirmation, and the trust clause together in my folder. I asked Cheryl to keep the originals secured until the harvest dinner. Destiny still thought the shop copy was gone. Dad still thought the account was his to explain. Neither of them knew the third carbon layer had survived. For the next 2 weeks, I behaved normally. I worked. I answered Mom's texts about table linens. I approved the harvest dinner menu. When Dad emailed a question about greenhouse insurance, I replied with one sentence and didn't mention the account. Christian knew what Cheryl had found. I showed him the certified copy at our kitchen table. He read the slip, then looked at the handwriting. "That's Destiny's," he said. "Yes." "And Barry's card?" Cheryl confirmed it. He read the instruction again. "Do not contact bride." "What do you want me to do at the dinner?" he asked. "Sit beside me." "That's all?" "That's enough." He placed the copy back in its envelope. "Your dad may try to leave. Cheryl will handle the trust before anyone leaves. And Destiny? She'll do whatever Destiny does when a room stops agreeing with her." He nodded. I kept hearing Dad's voice from the driveway. "The greenhouse isn't yours yet." He believed the September handover was his last chance to shape what ownership looked like. I wanted to know how far he would go when he thought I still had no proof. 4 days before the harvest dinner, Mom arranged a planning call. She added Dad, Destiny, Christian, and me. Cheryl joined because she was bringing the trust documents. Mom began with the menu. "We have chicken, roasted vegetables, the apple salad, and 2 desserts," she said. "Destiny thinks we need a vegetarian main dish." "I already added one," I said. "No one told me," Destiny replied. "It's in the email. I don't have time to read 20 message chains. There are 6 messages." Dad cut in. "Food's handled. Let's move on." Mom discussed seating. Keith and the greenhouse staff would sit near the main doors. Family would be at the long center table. Regular customers and suppliers would fill the smaller tables. Then Dad said, "We should cover the transition while Cheryl's here." Cheryl answered, "That's why I'm attending. I mean before Saturday. I don't want surprises." I was standing at my studio sink stripping leaves from a bundle of eucalyptus. "What kind of surprise?" I asked. "Nothing bad. I want everyone to understand this isn't a light switch. The trust says ownership transferred when we married," I said. "Yes, technically." Cheryl spoke before I could. "Not technically, Barry. Legally." A short silence followed. Dad said, "Of course. I mean the practical side. Sandra and I have managed the accounts and operations for 2 years. Emily can't absorb that overnight. I've had 3 months. 3 months spent chasing a florist." Destiny laughed softly. I kept my voice level. "I'm tying up loose ends from the flowers." "You're still doing that?" she asked. "Yes." "What loose ends?" "The order records." Destiny answered too quickly. "There aren't any records." Laura lost the slip. Nobody spoke. I set the eucalyptus on the counter. I didn't say there was a slip. Destiny recovered almost immediately. "You told us at lunch. I said someone came into the shop. You said the order changed. Obviously there would be paperwork. What kind? A change form or receipt or whatever florists use. You've never used stone and vine." "I run an event company, Emily. Vendors all use the same basic systems." Cheryl remained silent on the call. I asked, "Did you speak to Laura?" "No." "Ever?" "No. Not even when you came to the greenhouse walkthrough? I don't remember her being there. She remembers you." Destiny gave an irritated sigh. "This is what I mean. You keep trying to turn bad luck into a conspiracy." Dad said, "Enough. We're discussing the handover." I let him. He explained his proposal as if it had already been agreed upon. He and Mom would remain co-signers on the operating account for another year. I would own the property, but major spending would require one of their signatures. Destiny would develop an events plan for the greenhouse using Bright Occasions vendors. Christian leaned close to my phone and mouthed, "There it is." I asked, "Has Cheryl reviewed this proposal?" "I'm hearing it now," Cheryl said. Dad cleared his throat. "It's for stability." "The trust doesn't provide for an extension," Cheryl told him. "It doesn't forbid Emily from requesting help." "I haven't requested it," I said. Mom entered the conversation in her careful voice. "No one is trying to take anything from you. Your father just wants to make sure you don't feel buried. I don't feel buried. You will, once you see how much there is." I looked at the folder on my desk. "I'm looking forward to seeing everything." Dad said, "That attitude is exactly why we need a gradual handover. You don't know what you don't know." Destiny added, And if you reject my events plan because you're angry about wedding flowers, you'll be leaving real money on the table. Bring the plan Saturday, I said. She paused. Really? Yes. Explain it to everyone. Dad's voice warmed. Good. That's sensible. They thought I had yielded. We ended the call after Mom assigned arrival times. Christian waited until I put down the phone. You want Destiny to present her plan? I want her to say exactly what she expects in front of Cheryl. And your dad? Him too. The afternoon before the dinner, I met Cheryl at the greenhouse office. The bank had provided the pre-transfer statements. Cheryl had sealed them for an independent auditor. She didn't tell me the full result because the review wasn't finished, but she confirmed the unexplained charges continued through August. Dad had made one more transfer after my wedding. It was labeled transition consulting. I asked, can he claim he paid Destiny to consult? He can claim anything. He still needs a legitimate greenhouse purpose and documentation. There wasn't an events contract. No. Could he create one now? He could try. We both looked toward the main greenhouse where Destiny was directing a rental crew. She had arrived with easels, display boards, and a laptop. She's presenting more than a suggestion, Cheryl said. Yes. Did you authorize her to use greenhouse funds? No. Did you authorize her to enter agreements? No. Then let her talk. Saturday evening was cool enough that we opened the greenhouse doors. Long tables ran between the planting beds. Mom used Rosa's old cream tablecloths. I arranged low centerpieces from dahlias, rosemary, and the last summer roses. I cut every stem myself. By 6, the gravel lot was full. Keith wore a clean version of his usual canvas cap. Laura came alone and chose a seat near the end of the staff table. She had agreed to attend if Cheryl needed her to confirm the change slip. Dad noticed her. He looked at me, then walked over to welcome a supplier without asking why she was there. Destiny had placed 3 display boards near the center table. The largest read, Bright Occasions at Stevens Gardens. She had removed greenhouse from the name. I didn't correct it. Christian and I sat beside Cheryl. Mom sat across from us. Dad took the chair at the head of the table, though Rosa had never assigned a head. Dinner began with ordinary conversation. People talked about the summer heat, rising fuel prices, and which rose varieties had performed best. I ate slowly. Christian kept his knee against mine beneath the table. After the plates were cleared, Dad stood. He tapped his glass with a spoon. I want to thank everyone for coming, he said. This year's dinner is special. Our family has been through a transition since we lost Rosa, and Sandra and I have done our best to protect what she built. Mom looked down at her folded hands. Dad continued, Emily is now taking ownership, and we're proud of her. But a property like this requires experience, patience, and support. Families work best when everyone brings their strengths. Destiny stood beside her display boards. Dad gestured toward her. Destiny has built a successful event company. She's prepared a plan that will make the greenhouse more profitable while preserving what matters. People turned in their chairs. Destiny opened her laptop. Her plan included weddings, corporate dinners, styled photography sessions, and seasonal markets. Bright Occasions would receive a management fee for each event. The greenhouse would cover staffing, utilities, repairs, and insurance. Bright Occasions would collect the planning fees. She called it a partnership. When she finished, Dad stood again. This is the direction we believe gives Emily the best chance to succeed, he said. Sandra and I will remain on the account during the first year. Destiny will manage the event side. Emily can focus on flowers and growing operations. It was no longer a proposal. He had announced it as a decision. I asked, "Did you prepare an agreement?" Dad lifted a folder from beside his chair. I brought a transition document. "Is it signed?" "Your mother and I signed it." Mom looked at him sharply. "I signed the acknowledgement page," she said. "It's all part of the same document," Dad replied. Destiny closed her laptop. "This doesn't need to be hostile," she said. "We're trying to prevent another situation where one little thing goes wrong and Emily can't move past it." Laura's chair shifted against the floor. I said, "You mean the wedding flowers?" Destiny smiled at the people around the table. Exactly. The roses arrived brown. It was bad luck. We fixed them, the wedding happened, and everyone survived. That's what competent event managers do. What variety arrived? I asked. Her smile stayed in place. How would I know? You just called them roses. Everyone saw the bouquet. Did everyone see them in the boxes? Dad said, Emily? Destiny waved one hand. Pink roses, cream roses, sweet something. It doesn't matter. They were flowers. Laura looked directly at Cheryl. I waited. Destiny had denied entering the shop. She had denied speaking to Laura. She had denied knowing about the records. Now she had named part of a varietal that never appeared in a wedding photograph. Dad pushed his signed transition document across the table toward me. Let's stop circling old problems, he said. Sign this, and we can move forward as a family. I placed one hand on the folder in my lap. I didn't open Dad's document. Instead, I took out the certified carbon copy and set it beside his folder. Destiny stopped smiling. Dad looked down at the pink sheet. Mom leaned forward, trying to read it. Cheryl stood. Before Emily signs anything, we need to address a trust matter. Dad's chair scraped the floor. What matter? Cheryl placed the card receipt beside the change slip. This order change was made at Stone and Vine 3 days before Emily's wedding. It replaced her contracted flowers and charged $640 to the greenhouse operating account. That's not possible, Mom said. Cheryl pointed to the receipt. The card ends in the same 4 digits as the trust-linked purchasing card issued to Barry. Every chair around the center table had gone still. Dad said, "That doesn't prove what the payment was for. It's attached to the order." Then the florist attached the wrong receipt. Laura stood at the other table. "I didn't," she said. Dad turned toward her. "You already mishandled the entire wedding." "Yes," Laura replied. "I accepted a change without calling Emily. I've admitted that. But this is the receipt from that change." Destiny folded her arms. That slip could belong to anyone. Laura walked to the center table. "You brought the order in," she said. "No, I didn't. You told me you were Emily's sister. You said the family had approved the substitutions. You wrote that I wasn't to contact the bride." Destiny looked around the room. This woman was in the hospital on the wedding day. She clearly doesn't remember what happened. Celia's signed statement was behind the carbon copy. Cheryl set it on the table. The accounting copy remained sealed in the bookkeeper's weekly packet, she said. It was logged the Monday after the transaction. Destiny pointed at the initials. That says DS. There are thousands of people with those initials. I know your handwriting, I said. She looked at me. The capital D on the slip matched the one on her display boards. She had written bright occasions at Stevens Gardens by hand before the lettering was enlarged. Several people noticed at the same time. Mom looked from the board to the slip. "Destiny," she said. "Did you change the flowers?" "No." "Laura watched you sign it," I said. "She's lying." "Then how did you know the substituted rose was Sweet Promise?" I said sweet something. That varietal was never displayed at the wedding. The boxes were removed before guests entered. Destiny's face had gone red. Dad reached for the receipt. Cheryl placed her hand over it. "This remains with me." "It's my card," he said. "It's the trust's card. I managed that account for 2 years. You were authorized to manage it for greenhouse expenses." Dad looked at me. "I was trying to fix a wedding problem. There was no problem until Destiny created one. You don't know the whole situation. I know the original flowers were already paid for. I know Destiny replaced them with a rush wholesale order. I know she told Laura not to contact me. I know you paid for it from Rose's account." Mom turned to him. "You gave Destiny the card?" Dad didn't answer. "Barry, did you know she was changing the order? It was supposed to be a minor substitution." The room seemed to contract around that sentence. Destiny said, "Dad, stop talking." He ignored her. Emily was insisting on doing everything herself. We needed her to understand that managing a property requires help. You sent dead flowers to teach me that? I asked. They weren't supposed to be dead. Whether Destiny selected already failing stems or only chose a varietal that couldn't survive the rushed delivery no longer mattered. She created the order. Dad funded it. Then both of them stood beside those boxes and told me it was bad luck. Cheryl opened Rosa's trust document. She read the forfeiture clause aloud. It stated that documented use of operating funds for a personal, non-farm purpose ended the responsible trustee's authority immediately upon proof presented to the trust attorney. Cheryl looked at Dad. The card match, transaction record, and witness change order satisfy that condition. Barry, your trustee authority is forfeited effective now. Dad stared at her. You can't do that at a dinner. The location doesn't change the trust. She turned to Mom. Sandra, the marriage condition has already been satisfied. Your interim appointment ends with this handover. You and Barry are both removed as co-trustees. Mom's lips parted, but no words came out. Cheryl continued. The operating account is frozen pending an independent audit. Barry will be required to repay every personal or unsupported expense. Emily's ownership is confirmed without the proposed co-signers, management agreement, or Bright Occasions partnership. Destiny grabbed her laptop. This is unbelievable. I looked at Dad's transition document. You signed an agreement giving her company access to the property while you were already paying it from the trust. Mom turned toward him again. What does she mean? Already paying it? Dad said nothing. I set Keith's photographed summaries on the table. More than $30,000 in 1 year was labeled consulting and equipment. Keith never ordered it. Mom picked up the first page. Her hands shook. How much? She asked. The audit will determine that, Cheryl said. Destiny closed her laptop hard. You're destroying my company over flowers. No, I said. I'm ending access to an account that was never yours. She looked toward Mom, waiting. Mom kept reading the expense pages. For once, she didn't tell me to let it go. Destiny left before dessert. Dad followed her into the gravel lot but returned alone. Nobody signed his transition document. The audit took 4 weeks. It found approximately $52,400 in unsupported withdrawals made between Rosa's death and that August. Most matched payments, rent gaps, and vendor expenses connected to Bright Occasions. Cheryl demanded repayment from Dad. His attorney arranged a civil repayment agreement rather than fight a trust document he had signed as trustee. The money began returning to the greenhouse account in scheduled installments. Without the monthly support, Bright Occasions collapsed before the end of the next month. Destiny canceled events, lost her office, and blamed me in messages I stopped reading. Laura refunded the $640 to the trust account and returned my original floral fee personally. I accepted the refund. I didn't resume sending her clients. Dad never apologized. He sent one email asking for copies of the audit. Cheryl answered it. He didn't contact me again. Mom called several weeks later and asked to meet at my studio. She sat beside the yellow line under my work table while I trimmed roses for a restaurant order. I didn't know about the money, she said. I believe you didn't know the amount. She nodded slowly. I knew he helped Destiny. I thought it came from our savings. You still pressured me to keep him on the account. Yes. You told me the flowers didn't matter. Yes. She didn't add an excuse. After a while, she said, I kept asking you to be reasonable because Destiny made unreasonable behavior exhausting. You were easier to disappoint. I set down my knife. That doesn't make it smaller. I know. It wasn't forgiveness. I told her I needed distance, and she said she understood. We began with one phone call every few weeks. She didn't come to the greenhouse without asking. She didn't carry messages from Dad or Destiny. That was the relationship we could manage. I restored the property's full name, Stevens Greenhouse Gardens. Destiny's display boards went into storage until I had them recycled. Keith stayed as foreman. We hired an independent bookkeeper and required 2 documented approvals for large expenses, neither from my parents. The following spring, I mounted a small brass plaque beside the cedar grafting table. Rosa Stevens. She noticed what living things needed. On my first wedding anniversary, I cut 6 cream roses from the climber at the arbor. I added rosemary, hellebore, and lisianthus, exactly as I had ordered the year before. Christian found me tying the stems at Rosa's old table. "Is that the replacement?" he asked. "Yes." He touched one rose carefully. "Worth the wait?" I looked at the clean petals and the new growth below each cut. "Yes," I said. "This one is." I learned that keeping peace is only generous when everyone is asked to carry the cost. If one person always pays for it, it isn't peace, it's permission. Subscribe if you want more stories like mine, and tell me which city you're watching from.